Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special, fun episode of SocialFlight Live. Let me move my camera over here. I am Jeff Simon here for SocialFlight, and I have Jake and Ben with me as well. We are going to have a really cool show where we talk about this thing that's been part of our set in the background, as you can see here, our T51D Mustang. And most importantly, we're going to be taking your questions. And so a quick point of kind of how-to on this. There is a Q&A feature that is built in, and you can just type your questions. And what's going to happen is Jake's going to come over here. He'll be working this station where we are right now, looking at questions and kind of forwarding those along to us as we take you on a tour for where we've been and where we are now in our Titan T51D Mustang build. And so before I get started here, what I'd like to do is, let me bring up the screen. There we go. So what I'd like to do is a couple things that we always do. Obviously, we've been gone for a couple weeks here, and we always like to promote the two things we're doing to keep general aviation going during this crisis. We continue to get great stories from people about all of the flying that you're doing out there. And so keep in mind our Takeoffs for Takeout program. Frequent your all sorts of different airport restaurants and FBOs and other businesses. This is an excellent time to take advantage of whether it's deals on upgrading your avionics or doing work on your engine, all sorts of things to help support our industry. I spend a lot of time with people on the inside working for these companies, and I can tell you that it makes a huge difference to everyone out there when you actually fly and you continue to invest in general aviation. It preserves jobs, it keeps these companies going and investing, and it's so, so important to all of us. And of course, that goes right along with our aviation social distancing campaign of one propeller apart and one community together. If you'd like a copy of this customized with your organization or chapter's logo, just send a note to info@socialflight.com and we will take care of that. Now, if you were wondering where we have been over the past 2 weeks, well, I can tell you it was one amazing adventure. We actually went out to Glacier National Park. That's in Kalispell, Montana. That's where we flew into, to the Glacier Airport there. Unbelievable trip, and I'll just say that we will be coming out with a video series on this trip that you'll see on our YouTube channel, and we'll probably also have a SocialFlight Live night where we can talk in much more detail about it. It was an amazing trip. We had a lot of weather challenges as well, and I'll tell you one quick tidbit. On our way into the park, we had a solid cloud layer that had the peaks of all of these mountains encased in a cloud layer, and we were flying the valleys in. It was truly breathtaking and also a little bit white knuckle, but we had all our flight planning in place to make that a safe trip. And also I wanted to show you, we upgraded the aircraft just before we left from an IFD 540 to an IFD 550, and this view that you can see here of coming up to the mountains as we go through this was really breathtaking. You can see it on our Aspen as well to the left. Having these synthetic vision views and also having TAWs available to us for terrain awareness was really important while you're flying through valleys and dealing with mountain flying along with that. So again, look for that. Lots of fun stuff coming up in the future on that. And with that, I'd like to kick off our T51D Mustang night. Now, you know, one of my dreams has always been to build an aircraft. It's for as long as I can remember, when I first got into aviation, it was something I wanted to do. And I looked at all different types of planes, and there were phases where I was thinking something that could just do backcountry. There were phases when I was thinking of a traveling machine that could hold as much as possible. All sorts of different things that I looked at, canards and tail draggers and all sorts of different things. And it wasn't until a few years ago when I came across the Titan T51D Mustang replica that I just turned to the boys. We saw it at Oshkosh and we're like, this is it. I mean, if we're going to have a project that we're going to dedicate years of our life to building and then have something that's really that second airplane, I want it to be something just knock your socks off fun. And we got a chance to fly it as well. And I can tell you, as you can see from the pictures here, it is just unbelievable. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this and is, you know, John Williams, who's the president and owner of Titan Aircraft, he really made it his mission to make an aircraft that looked like a Mustang, but kind of flew like a pussycat. You know, this is not an aircraft that is designed to push the limits and race at Reno and things like that. This is designed to have fun and do it as safely as possible. And because of that, it's been designed, even though it has a big engine out front, it's actually got kind of a fat wing. And so it actually doesn't, even though you've got the V8 aircraft engine on the front that produces anywhere from 300 to 425 horsepower, depending on what engine's going in it, it actually only uses that in climb in terms of what the aircraft can get out of it. You go about 200 miles an hour if you're flat out on it, but you'll climb out at like 3,500 feet a minute, 4,000 feet a minute. It's crazy what the thing will do simply because of that. And one of those things is what gives it its stall characteristics that are so benign, its easy landing characteristics, etc. So when we got it home, it started as you see here. The shop that you see behind me, and I'm gonna step back there in a minute, and we're gonna start that kind of tour and discussion. Started all empty, and as you can see, you get a welded frame that is your beginning point for all of this, and all the kit pieces laid out that you can see here in this picture. And then from that point forward, we started by putting it on a stand and assembling the different halves that go with it. And step by step, going through and building this sandwich construction that we'll talk to you about in a minute, right next to the aircraft, that is a combination of this steel frame design along with a semi-monocoque structure that has the skins bearing load as well, both bonded and riveted to these hat sections. And so it went from those stages to the stage that you see here. What you'll see behind me right now does not have the elevators and horizontal stabilizers attached anymore. We took those off just for ease of working on the side skins that we're doing. And we went through those different stages, got all those pieces going on it. And then most recently got back from another trip to Titan, where we picked up the center section you can see here, which comes with gear mounted on it. Everything's in place, the entire gear system's there. We need to do work to that, and then it won't be that long before we mate that to the aircraft and then hang this baby on it. This is the LM4 V8 engine that we are going to be using on our aircraft. Most of the ones that are shipping right now use the LS3 Corvette engine. This is just a small variant of that. With that, what I'd like to do is invite Jake over, who will be handling help. How you doing, Jake? Good. So what I'm going to do is we're going to switch this over. I'm going to go head over to where Ben is waiting next to the aircraft. And again, send in your questions. We'll take you on a tour of what we're doing now, what we've been doing, and what's coming next, and try to answer as many of your questions as we can along the way. I will say a lot of the time, so much work goes into our editing, right? I mean, we have so much footage that we have to get through to get out there on YouTube that our build is actually quite a bit further along than what you may have seen on our YouTube channel. So this will be a good sneak peek as those additional videos come out and give you tips on kind of how we actually got there. So with that, Jake, you take over. I'll head over there with Ben, and we will be all set with that. Let's bring Ben's camera on. Let's see. Here's Ben's camera, and I'm going to turn off the mic.
Okay, so we're going to give you a tour of our little workshop here, starting over here. I'll show the baggage door, show the interior. We're going to show how all the skins come together, how pretty much how this gets built, everything and how we're thinking about it. Then we're going to go around to the front and show our, the other side of our workshop, where a lot of the planning comes together and a lot of the just fabricating, making parts, making solving problems and building this airplane.
Everything that goes into it, definitely. So hopefully you can get a clear shot of us, and you can hopefully hear us all right as well. This is the first time that we've set up a 2-camera system in order to make this all happen. And so, as we said, let's take you a little bit through the steps that we went through, and then get into this. And of course, we'll be answering your questions along the way. Underlying this entire structure is what you can see sometimes in our pictures in green, and that's that steel frame that you saw. And then underneath all of this, I don't know if we have a piece of it around, but underneath all of this are these hat sections that you see over here. And I will definitely say that Ben is probably our hat section king, chopping these and doing as many things to fit, because what you're doing is you're sandwiching the frame. You know, one of the things that's amazing, they've never had any form of structural failure on the Titan Mustangs, according to the factory. And one of the reasons for that is that they basically designed its strength through the carry-through steel structure. And then on top of that, you have an entire another structure level of these bonded skins that are on and kind of a semi-monocoque structure, as we talked about. And that brought the strength level to a whole level above that, which makes a huge difference. It gives us a lot of confidence in the safety of the aircraft. So the first thing that we did is, when that was out there, really it was Jake and Ben that went to work and fitted all these pieces. What was that like?
So it's a lot of measuring. A lot of measuring. You get it starts with the frame, and then the hat sections go over. Then you have the U channel in between, and especially right here in the cockpit, you're sandwiching the hat section with the U channel and 2 sheets of skin right there.
Yeah, that's important also. So when you think about what Ben's mentioning here, which I forgot, of course, is that inside the cockpit, you've also got the inner skins. And so you've got a double layer there. So you got the inner skins, etc. And then, if you look at, again, we'll have to grab it. Ben, why don't you go grab a piece of hat section so we can show that. That gives you the ability to sandwich and rivet on one side, the way you see it here with all these holes, that you're pulling a skin in. And then on the other side of these stringers that kind of go through here, you actually have kind of the top hat part of the hat section. And that gives you an opportunity to rivet directly into that. So this is a good example. Here's a piece of hat section. You can kind of see it that way. And the way that it's oriented and what you're looking at here is like this. So of course, you've got your skin on one side, but you've got this top that you're able to rivet into also as on the other side. Now that is something that you can do on these stringers that go in the center, because they're not sandwiching part of the frame. But where you actually have the frame sandwich, well, one of the things Titan tells you is you never want to drill into the steel structure of the aircraft. And so the way that you get around how do you, being able to attach something to the other side are these pieces. These pieces are U channel. And so you can kind of see the difference. This one looks like a hat, and this one basically a U. So if you stack these together like that, what you have is you have this flange, these 2 flanges for your outer skin, but you now have a free flange up here that you can tack things in from the inside out. And so that's how the inner skins are done. And those skins are actually ready to go on this. Matter of fact, we'll go grab one. This is an example of one right here. And this is actually all painted up, and when the time comes, ready for us to go and insert into place, and then that'll be the inside that faces the pilot. So that kind of gives you a basic layout of it. Now, according to the instructions and how you go through this, you start, after all those hat sections are done, you start with all the side skins, and then you start going to the other skins, like the top skins, the turtle deck, etc., along the way. we did some of that, but we were also a little kind of anxious to get ahead of, to some of the systems. You know, when you work on a kit project of any kind, there's a lot of different systems happening. You've got hydraulics, electrical, you know, mechanical things where you're doing things. You may have gluing, sanding, all sorts of different stages. And
a big part of the planning that goes into this is when we rivet, it's staying there. So you need, if we're working on like cables or more projects on the inside, mounting different things, we need to be able to get in there, put our hands in there, put our heads in there. And so a whole big part of planning this out is where you start.
Yeah, yeah, and there are some options. Titan tells you, you can start with a center section, you can start with the fuselage, but most of the build, up to 75% of it, is really in this fuselage, because that's where all your electrical is and all your control systems and avionics, you know, structural, everything. So you really have two things. Ben mentioned a really great point, and that is, one of the things is we all know what it's like to work on a regular certified aircraft that's done. And that is every hole, every access panel, you want more space. And
Yep.
you're always wondering, you know, how in the world do I get in there? Why did the engineer make it so that I have this little hole? I mean, we just replaced fuel bladders on our Bonanza, and that's a perfect example. They made two small access panels to get into the fuel bladder, and there's a couple snaps you really can't reach for a normal human being. And so we're like, oh my God, like why? Why not like one more inch the right way? So that's part of deciding how much did we want to do inside the fuselage before we finish the skins. The other part of it is the fact that this is a multi-year project. And so it can get draining to do the same task too much. I think you got sick of doing hat sections, that's for sure, right?
Yeah, with hat sections. But a big part about building a plane on your own is you don't have to stick with those tiny access panels. It's not just you don't have to put the side skin on,
right,
and you don't have to mount the side skin yet. Is if you don't want a tiny access panel, you don't put a tiny access panel.
That's right. Yeah, right. You still, exactly. You still have to make sure you're accounting for the structural integrity, of course. You don't want to violate that. And so we're going to show you a couple things that had to do with access that we engineered into it in our build. One of the things that Titan does in their philosophy of building is they take the things that are most important to the safety and structural integrity of the aircraft and having it fly true. And those are kind of done for you. You don't have to weld this frame. You don't need a jig for it or anything like that. And so the safety aspect is covered. But when you get to other things like, what do you want to do for a baggage compartment? What do you want to do for access to different things? They leave that up to the builder. And so, as a matter of fact, you can even see from the picture I showed earlier, the center section, that comes largely built because it's such a critical structure, and the gear's installed by Titan at the factory. So they try to make it so the most important critical stuff is done, but all these other things, we have a lot of say. So what I was trying to get at basically is we did a fair amount of work on the skins, but we decided we want to take a break from that and really focus on the systems inside. Take a break and start working on rudder cables. Take a break and start working on some hydraulics or things for like how the belly is going to work inside there. And so that gave us an opportunity to go back and forth between these things. And Jake, I'm going to say, like, keep yelling over some questions, and we'll make sure we get those answered along the way. So let's look at a few things. Like Ben, maybe you want to show people what you did as far as the yeah, question.
So what specialized skills do you need for this build, and what barriers of not knowing something does that present in trying to build this aircraft?
Okay, so Jake just forwarded one of your questions in, and that was what specialized skills are required for this build, and what kind of barriers are there based on what you know and what you don't know in terms of getting into it. And that's a great question. The boys had never built anything before. I happen to be an A&P mechanic in IA, but I will tell you, that had very little input into this build. So my answer to your question is, believe it or not a lot. You don't need to know a lot or have specialized skills before you build the aircraft. The learning curve is something that comes from using the tools and practicing on cutting, on doing shapes and figuring some of these things out. I think the biggest learning curve is in learning how to read the drawings and also learning kind of what's spelled out for you and how to get comfortable making decisions for things that are not totally spelled out for you. No one's going to tell you how you put a latch on a door for a baggage compartment. That's up to you. And so you start to figure out, oh, so I can just look at other planes or talk to other builders and figure out if I'm going to do one latch or I'm going to do two or where they should go. Generally, if it isn't defined, as I said earlier, it's not going to be critical to the safety of flight. And so I guess the biggest learning curve, other than kind of using the tools ourselves, the biggest learning curve was understanding what we had to figure out for ourselves and what was okay to decide for ourselves.
I think for me, not having experience with metal and metalworking, it's once you have those basic skills with basic tools, not even just power tools, not even some of the tools we have over here, but like when you have these basic skills, you're repeating a lot of that because learning how to cut half sections, learning with the U channels, learning with the skins, how to measure it and how to drill it. After you know that, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
You can repeat that skill over and over again, and it takes you pretty far. So it's
Right.
you're not constantly needing more and more of an experience or like a skill to do it. If you have like the basic skills or you want to learn those basic skills, you can do that and you can go pretty far, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, you can figure most of it out on your own. The other quick thing that we get a lot of questions on has to do with all of our tools. And that's an interesting thing as well, because Titan gives you a fairly short list of tools that you need in order to build this aircraft. And that's going to be things like, rivet puller because it's pulled rivets on there. It's going to be lots of different types of like hand shears and files and real basic things to be able to drill, file, and cut. At the same time, certainly I'm kind of a tool addict, so you will also be attracted to finding other tools to add to your collection that can make things faster or can do things in much more creatively and allow you to come up with different ideas. And so that's when we decided to get a shear, which is just like a Harbor Freight thing. It's not like anything crazy. Or decided, for the bandsaw to get a chopped bandsaw. I don't think we've invested a lot of money in tools, not a crazy amount, especially compared to what it costs to build an airplane anyway. But some of them are really just things that I get a smile on my face. Some of them are just toys, right? We got something because it's a toy and we want to do it. So we had another question?
Do they supply wire bundles, or do you have to make them yourself, or how do you deal with the wiring in the aircraft?
Okay, so the question is about wiring. And does Titan sell wire bundles, or do you have to do that on your own? And the answer is mixed. So if you're dealing with firewall forward that comes from the factory from Titan, you get a whole harness. That's all set. If you're dealing with wiring in terms of like how you wire your battery power in or switches, a lot of that you then have to figure it out on your own. They do supply bulk wire. They do supply all the things that are kind of the basic switches, a starter switch, power, battery power, solenoid switches, things like that. And so many of those are going to be unique anyway to what you decide to do on your own build. I will say something right now is really huge. Two things that we chose to do on ours. The first, if you think about the battery system in itself, basic battery system is just one battery, solenoid for the master, just like any certified aircraft, solenoid for the starter, and then that's pretty much it. But using an automotive engine, you're relying on that computer, it doesn't run on mags. So we need electrical power in order to have engine power in this aircraft. And so because of that, most builders choose to do a backup battery. We used EarthX batteries, which are these lithium batteries. They're half size, and therefore we could use the same tray as would hold a normal full-size battery and have our main battery and our backup battery. And then we also implemented this vertical power PPS system, which stands for primary power system. And this, with solid state, replaces the solenoids, at least for the main part of the system. We're still going to have a solenoid that has the backup battery, but this helps us a lot as well. And then the other thing, which I really love, absolutely love it, is this approach fast stack system. We chose to do this because we wanted to have, when we get to the instrument panel and all of the instruments in there in the avionics, I didn't want to be doing a custom panel and I didn't want to send it out. And so working with Approach Fast Stack, you tell them the avionics that you have and then just the lengths for where this hub is going to be. And they prefabricate all of the wire connectors that you get, these really heavy gauge connectors where everything's done. And it's just like, plug this into the Avidyne 550 and then boom, it plugs right into GPS Nav 1 right up here. Plug this into the links, boom, plugs right back in here. Like every single system becomes one plug. And the only pigtails that are left to wire in that case are things for like push to talk switches, headphone jacks, which even that comes with the Approach Fast Stack. So many things are done on it. It's very, very cool that handles it. So big shout out to these guys if you're even considering it, Approach Fast Stack. Yes, another question.
So we have two questions that are relating back to tools.
Yeah.
So is there one or two tools that were not necessary, but that like made the process more productive? So we'll start on that.
Okay. First question about tools. Are there different tools? We're probably going to have different favorites, and you probably have one there too, Jake. What tools were not necessary, but we loved it? We loved getting them. What would you say?
Probably that tool right over there, our electromagnetic.
Yeah. Okay, we'll show you that in a minute. That's too big to show while the camera's right here.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. But it's okay. We're gonna hold for a minute. Magna bend. We're gonna show you what a magna bend is, and that is something that I would say is absolutely, completely unnecessary. Totally don't need it. Absolutely love it. Love that thing. It's so much fun. So there's that. The other thing would probably be high quality drills at different angles. So let me show you this. Let's grab a couple of these out. Here's one. Here's another. So let's talk about the different kinds of drills that we have. So we have standard air power drill. Aircraft Tool Supply makes extremely high quality drills. This thing is great. We chose to go with an option from them where you don't need a key for the chuck, so that's really great. This thing's been fantastic, and I will tell you, you're using it all the time. So get the highest quality drill that you can afford. So you're going to be using that as well. And Aircraft Tool Supply also has the drill bits in large packs at very low cost, because you want to keep rifling through those as well because they get dull. That doesn't get into everywhere, and where we started was with a tight fit drill kit like this, which has within it, a fixture that you have to hook up, that you chuck into your drill, and yeah, it does the job.
It was good.
It definitely does the job, but there's a lot to deal with. Mm-hmm. And then we discovered this guy. This is from Aircraft Tool Supply also. It's a high quality right angle air drill. And we loved it when we found this. We just started churning through stuff faster and faster. But even with this, after a while, you still find that if you're like going up directly against something, as you can see, your fist is up against it. So it's really only good for certain cases where you're free at an angle and you need to get into a corner and go down from that.
Yeah. You'd be surprised though. If we're like working on, for example, like the belly scoop, trying to get all those drilled.
Oh yeah.
you think, oh, it's just all we need is the air power, the regular air powered drill. Then you go in, you stick your hand in there, and you realize
You can't fit.
can't.
Right. So we thought we had it made then with that. We're kind of, like I said, we kind of become tool junkies about this. Then we found the next one, and this is our latest favorite drill that there is. I think, Jake, would you agree?
Yeah.
Jake's nodding up and down. He's like, he loves this. This guy, 45-degree drill bit head. Now I have a very small bit on that one, and you can put different bits on any of them. This guy is fantastic because it's the best of both worlds. We are able to get in, and now you don't have to worry about being tight. You can get into a certain place and put it in just like that. And so this thing can get into almost anywhere. You need to get into a corner, you get in this way, pop it down. This is my new favorite tool.
So next we need like a 15-degree. I think we just gotta get all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Might as well.
Tons of different tools along that. I'm trying to think as I'm looking over here. Here's another one that I really love.
Yes.
This is a mini belt sander, 3/8 of an inch belt sander that you can see here. And I love this guy.
You use that more than
I do. I probably use it more than anyone because I mean, when you cut any type of an interior hole or an access panel or a door, that's hard to get in and file around. And this thing's just like all the way around. You can do really, really nice things with this. So that's another good one. Did we have a second question?
So you hit on your tools.
How are we not going to talk about the tools?
So how do you deal with glues? There are a lot of glue or epoxy.
So glue and epoxy. Titan gives you a 2-part epoxy that is the bonding agent you use in addition to the pulled rivets. Remember, there's no bucked rivets here. These are all pulled rivets, meaning pop rivets. And you really only use that when you are done with a section and you're ready to close up and you don't need to get back into it again. I would really say that turned out to be much easier than probably we anticipated.
Yeah.
It's really simple to mix up the glue, and you just use these tongue depressors to put on the thinnest coating. I think that's the biggest mistake is it's easy to goop it on in the beginning, which, the stuff's very expensive. You don't want to do that. It's also completely unnecessary. You just need it to look wet. And as long as it looks wet, you then bond and rivet. And the whole belly is all finished, bonded and riveted. There's a bunch of parts.
All of our hat sections.
Yeah.
Most of our hat sections, yeah.
Yeah, so.
It helps have a team. It helps have a group of people that can.
Yes, I couldn't do it without both of these guys.
Well, but
Well, there's that.
yeah, but it definitely helps, at least for us. We want one person, like, for example, when we put the belly on, one person's on glue, one person's drilling, and one person's riveting. And
Absolutely. So is there another question before we move on?
So going right back to tools, because
Everyone wants to talk tools, okay.
the compressor to drive everything.
Excellent question. One of the things I spent the most time looking for in the very beginning was a compressor for 2 reasons. One, want lots of power, and 2, it's in our house, okay? It's in our dining room and living room. And so we didn't want something that was gonna make a racket, but we want a good high powered one. And so I looked at a bunch of different places. I ended up getting one from Sears, a Craftsman. In fact, I don't know if you can move the thing or not. Ours is a 150 PSI max that does 5.8. So we have a 27-gallon unit, but what really matters on this, oops, sure you got that right? What really matters on this is, we've got one that's belt driven. And so you actually have an electric motor that's driving the belt, that's driving the compressor, which that makes all the difference in the world. I've had many large compressors that were these single stage things where everything's just happening in one unit. It's noisy. I just didn't find it to be a great way of doing it. This compressor has been fantastic, and so I recommend it highly. Again, this one happens to be just one from Craftsman, but it's 27 gallons and has done a great job for us. Any other questions from that before we move on?
people are asking about single, one person in the cockpit, two people in the cockpit.
Okay, excellent.
Things like costs, things.
Got it. Well, raise your hand if you have any other different types of questions. Obviously, 2 people in the cockpit on this. Let's talk about the cockpit for a minute, and then we'll talk about access panels here. So I'd like to show you some of the things about where we are in our build and some of the things we've done. Now, the Titan Mustang is a 2-seat aircraft. We have the rear seat out at the moment, just because we were doing some work back there on it, and only the front seat is in. And we've got a lot of our cockpit done already at this point. So let's talk some about the design. Now, as you can see, we're in the middle right now working on the windshield and the front windscreen, which is great. That's going together very fast. We're going to talk in a minute about instrument panel. In fact, maybe it makes sense to take a break and talk to you actually specifically about the instrument panel process, because so much of someone's build is actually right there in the cockpit. It's not the whole structure of the aircraft. Now, so there's a lot of programs out there. There's a lot of technology for laying out panels, getting panels cut, and things like that. I decided, I already knew what was going in here. We knew the avionics we wanted. We wanted to be a lot like our Bonanza, and the challenges that we had is not only do we have the layout kind of standard of what you want to do, but there's structural members here you're going to have to get around. And so what's a little hard to see now is it's encapsulated is you've got these 2 bars that are structural that go down into the frame. There's one on the left, there's one here on the right, and they continue down past the instrument panel and then will go all the way down till they meet the frame. That has some structure behind it that you have to have your avionics miss. You don't want your avionics to actually interfere with that. And then you also have structure for your rudder pedals. There's so many different things in here that you have to be careful about. And so because of that, we started with just doing old school layout. And what I mean by that is just took this and like started laying out on on paper, full-size accurate cutouts. I don't know if that's gonna get enough light on it right here, but full-size accurate cutouts of all of our instruments, and then mocking up, do they actually fit in place? And that was kind of the first step of doing it. The second step was to then take a sheet of metal and actually mock up exactly. I don't know if you can even see it on this, but we drew where every one of these went, and then actually on another piece started cutting those holes and doing a bunch of test fitting. And it wasn't until all those stages were done where we could test fit our avionics that we actually decided, okay, we're good, we know where it all goes. And that's when we decided to come up with this kind of 2-level system that will allow us to remove all of our entire instrument panel from inside the aircraft. And that goes back to what Ben was talking about before, which is having to do with maintenance and access. So there's 2 ways that you can deal with maintenance and access. You can do it from the inside of the aircraft, or you can do it from the outside. And some builders do it with access panels here, so they can go in and get to the avionics from the outside. What I wanted to do is create a system where this all can come out inside the cockpit. And that's exactly what we did. So can you see that clearly enough? Let's see, Ben's gonna move the camera a little bit so you can see that. And so what we did, and I'll even take a piece of this out for you so you can see it. You know the evening's going well when the screwdriver comes out. Things start coming apart. So let's take that out and that one out. So here's an example. This is our lower instrument panel, and it gets the air vents get installed on the left and right, and these are where all the switches are, for whether it's the lights or starting and power, etc. And then all the circuit breakers here, and our audio panel is down here at the bottom. And what's nice about it is this whole panel comes out with all of it attached and can be in your lap. You can turn it over. You can get to anything that you need to get to while it's right there in the aircraft and then goes back into place. Because of that design, we don't need to get in from the other side. One of the challenges of being in a tandem aircraft like this is not going to be something that's easy to get your head down and get back there. You basically can't. At least I can't. And so it's really important that all the different pieces come out so that you can reach them. And if the camera can show in here, I'm not sure if we can easily do that. Let's see if we can show that a little bit. You can actually see, let's move this. There we go. I know it's not straight, but you can actually see here how this whole thing comes out, and then you have this. Now this top panel does the exact same thing. This whole thing can be removed, and those trays come out with it. These are actually mounted directly to this, and so when this comes out, the tray comes out. You can actually take this, and then because of the system we're using with the approach fast stack, we can actually disconnect it, remove this completely from the aircraft. So let's get this back to straight up and down. And hopefully that, okay, we got a question. Yes.
So we talked about the front panel, what about the rear for the back seat?
Good question. So when you've got two boys.
That's your question.
Ben says that's Jake's question. Why? Because Jake takes a lot of pride in the fact that he created his own his own panel for the back. So in the back, I'm going to take this off. Jake created an instrument panel for the back, which is it's actually evolving, as it's going to have some other controls in it as well. This is going to have the Avionics AV30 right here in the center, and this is a lighting control. We've got some fantastic lighting for the system from Wheeling. This is going to be this is a light that's going to get mounted here. You can see that guy, the little micro light, which is great for being able to see things back there. And so, yeah, they've got an instrument control in the back. And one of the coolest things, since we're dealing again with a tandem aircraft, and we've got 3 pilots in the family, is, you know, backseater wants to do a lot of the flying and a lot of the navigating and a lot of the communicating. So as part of that, we get past that because the Avidyne IFD 550, as well as the 540 or even the 440s, have their IFD 100 application, which lets you control those units from an iPad. That's great because it means that your primary display for attitude can be back there, and attitude, airspeed, altitude, slip and skid indicator, etc. That'll all be back there primary for the rear passenger, but you can still control your navigation, whether it be comm frequencies, etc., from the back seat using the iPad. So hopefully that answers that question. Did that cover that one, Jake?
Yep.
Okay. Jake's very proud because he created that one. And this is a good time to also bring in this. We've got a little tray of goodies over here to show how all this stuff gets controlled. Hey, Jake, you want to get our friend out of here? This is the yolks from Toasted Manufacturer, which are really, really great. And this is how so many of those controls are also done for it. So if you take a look at this, this was completely custom made by Toasted, and they do that for everyone. It wasn't just for us. And what these controls have for us is this gray button that rocks back and forth that you can see here is for the flaps. That allows that to go up and down. I'm going to try to move that where you can see that a little bit better. And then this is going to be our push to talk right here on the front. We've got our trim control in the coolie hat at the top. And then we have this button. That's much better. Thank you. Much better lighting. This is going to be our smoke because we have a smoke system. And this is our straight and level button for the autopilot. We've got the Bendix King autopilot, and that'll just, boom, push that button. Everything goes straight and level, which is very, very helpful.
What about autopilot disconnect?
Autopilot disconnect. Good question. I missed one more button. Thank you. I don't even know if you'll be able to see it. Underneath here is a little hidden button. God, you really can't even see it with the light. But like right under here, let's see if I can do it. There's a button. Click, click, click. At least you can hear it. That's your autopilot disconnect. And so that's how we're going to set it up. That way it's not inadvertently hit, and it covers everything that you need. Any other big questions coming in before we move on?
What about we're going to use tablets in the aircraft?
We already talked about tablets. We'll be doing that. That's how we're going to use the IFD 100 application. So let's talk access a little bit. We talked about access panels, and we'll move this now so that we can get a little bit of a view. Sorry about this. Let's turn this guy and look there. Okay, here we go. So this is our baggage door. Two hefty latches that are on this. And this is an example of access panels into how we design this. I'm going to move this over here. Bear with us for the camera angle. I know that can be a little frustrating. Okay, so a couple things. One of the things that Titan recommends, which is really cool, is that you put this, there's a cross member, a diagonal cross member in here that you create via plexiglass an access panel right here, which is great because that gives you access, but you also don't have to open it if you just want to inspect things quickly as in part of a pre-flight as to what's going on. So that's one way that access is done. The other way is that we made the floor of this, actually I say we, this was totally the boys, made it so this floor panel comes out, and that's all screwed in just using regular Tinnermans, so that you can do really quick in and out. And that gives you access to where there's going to be a lot of pass-throughs and hydraulics and electrical. And so back. There we go. And then you're back to that. So we put quite a bit of maintenance access into this area here, and that certainly makes I think a big difference. You'll see some of that from the other side when we get to that as well. Let's follow ourselves forward here to try to continue our tour. And again, we'll do our best because we're moving a camera on a tripod. Moving forward, a lot of things happen up front in the aircraft on the inside of the nose compartment here. And this is where your rudder pedals are. I'm going to take this and just show you in here real quick. This area here has a lot going on. So those are your rudder pedals. They slide forward and aft of the cockpit. That's how you deal with different height pilots on that tube. And then what you can see here is, the other thing is how we're actually handling our heating and cooling system for the aircraft. And we did that in with a few different steps to it. And I'll be honest, a lot of this, what really came about with the help of Paul Morell, who's one of my closest friends, of course, and also if you've ever done anything with SocialFlight, you've probably come in contact with Paul. He's our guy and handles so many things for SocialFlight. And he has built 2 kit boxes, lives on an air park, and is all things aviation. So he sent us an air box for a kit box, and we incorporated that in our cooling system. The heating and cooling system on the Mustang is a perfect example of that balance where Titan takes care of the big things. Here, you're gonna have to stabilize that. There we go. Where Titan takes care of the big things, but when it comes to heating and cooling, they leave that up to the owner to decide how do you want to do it. So what we did is we got an airbox, like a heat exchanger from Summit Racing, which provides a lot of experimental aircraft parts. What's that? Okay, that is actually, it's a heater core, and so it's got a fan, and then it's got the coolant from the engine going through it for heat that it then can blow into the cockpit. But we had to control that. So I'll show you really quickly what that box looks like. And so let's see, you can see that's our heater box. And that area that you're seeing right now, that's down by the feet of the pilot on the other side of that wall. So on this side, you see the heater box. And on this side of the same thing is where you see those cables come up. And so what we did is we brought the output of that, some of the output of that comes out at your feet with a control that allows you to control how much air comes out there. And the rest of it comes up to an air box. And that air box is this thing right here. You can see this air box right in here. And this big line that comes into it is coming from our heater core and from that box. And then you have two outlets on the front that are on the other side of this that come into those cooling vents. Remember we showed you those cooling vents on the lower instrument panel. And then this one comes out and goes all the way down and back to the rear passenger. And so that's what does that. Now I'm going to grab this and we're going to go and work our way all the way around the other side of the plane. And now we can see the other part of this. You can see the air box up a little closer. Let's get that one. There we go. Okay. Now this air box has two ways that it's fed. One way is right through here with the heated air. The other way is going to be right in through here. And so we're going to have a scoop on the outside of the cowl, right at this top area, that brings fresh air into the top of this heater box. And this has a butterfly valve in it that varies whether it's getting air from the cool air or from the hot air, and then everything comes out the rest of the way. So it's kind of a cool system. Big thanks to Paul for getting that to us. That made a big difference in our design. So now we can come back and see a little bit more on this side. But while I'm here, we're going to go back to tools for 1 second. I'm going to show you our little favorite tool. I mentioned before about our magnet band. And that's what this guy is right here. I'll duck down so you can see me. So this is our magnet band. Now, if you've ever seen a regular brake, a sheet metal brake, you know, you've got an arm that can pull up here and bend things. It's pretty straightforward. Well, what the magnet bend does is that this top piece here is just steel. And this is electromagnet. And so you can put anything on here. I can do it with this, put a piece on, and I can even demonstrate this for you. You go and take a piece of scrap, stick it in here. Well, all I have to do is turn this on, make sure everything's on, hands, fingers, away. There's a foot pedal I step, boom, you see that whole thing clamped down on that really hard? And then I can just go, pull this up, and get a piece. And it's released. Now that you can do that with a lot of different things, but that's not where the real crazy cool part is. The crazy cool part about this is that you can take this off, and you can put pretty much anything ferrous on this. You can put a thin piece, in which case I can go and take this, let's say, line it up here. I can go here, do another one. I'll put that on there. Cut the thing. Put another bend in, like that. You can actually go and just keep going around. You could make a round tube. You could make, if you put a bar on here, a metal bar, you could go and make this into a complete box. There's a lot of cool things that you can do on that. So just a quick heads up. You want to know about a tool that is a little bit, you know, part toy, part whatever. We got this off of Alibaba, coming straight from China. In it, and it was less than $1,000. I think it was probably like $500. It really wasn't that much. So that was really cool. So now let's move on a little bit further. I'm going to take a few of these things off, show a few more tools here. Alrighty. let's take a quick look at this bench, and I think we have to pull that light over. Put that down there so we have a little bit more light. Let's see if that helps. Okay, so what I'm going to show now is our other kind of workstation area. And that consists of this with being able to just do sanding on this oscillating drum sander. We use this sander an awful lot, little 1-inch belt sander, really, really important. And then the next two things that we use the most are this little chop saw and our larger chop saw that goes in here. Most recently, we started doing a little bit more with these other tools, and that is a shrinker and a stretcher that went right over here. Again, these are not really expensive tools, and you can do some pretty cool things. If you turn around here, let's see, and look at the inside, I'll show you something. Whoops. Make sure we're all set. Okay, so if we turn around here, the inside of this on both sides is all made of hat section. And this was a little bit of a challenge, because what we had to do is make a piece like this. It starts off as just regular hat section, and then you put slices in it like that, and then you form it to the piece that you need, which is what you're seeing in here. And I thought this was going to be very hard to do, and it turns out it was actually pretty easy. Bring this back around. It turns out that really wasn't too hard. Using these little shrinkers and stretchers, which is less than $100, you actually can. This is a practice piece. You actually put it on one end. You're shrinking it. Shrinking means like putting, pulling together the aluminum. And so this section here has been shrunk, and then stretching is what's happened on this section, and then we're in good shape, and it starts to make a piece that'll bend. And so that's an example of how that worked. That's a perfect example. We had a question earlier about what skills do you need. That's a perfect example. I had no skills at all with shrinking, stretching, cutting, stuff like that. All I did is get those tools and start experimenting, and I learned the hard way. I was splitting pieces, and then I learned, you push very gently. You only have to do a little bit. And now it's like, okay, I get it. That took like a couple of hours of learning, and now I at least know the basics for life. So,
2 questions.
Yes, we got 2 more questions coming in.
How many Clecos do we have?
How many Clecos do we have? We have more than 1,000 Clecos, and we need another 1,000. That's my guess. Yeah, we have another question?
So the last question, we'll do this to finish it off as we approach 9 o'clock, is how are we going to get the fuselage out, or when are we going to know?
That's the big secret. The question that came in is, how is this fuselage getting out of here? We're not going to give away the secret completely at this time. All I can tell you is it's going to involve a bunch of people, and it is going to happen. And so our goal, of course, it's not where we think we're not that far away from getting this out of here. We've got to do some more wiring. There's a lot more to this. You know what? More than anything, send us your comments. Let us know if you want to have another night like this to go further, because we have just scratched the surface. There's so many cool things. This has been so much fun. And I love sharing it with all of you. If I can inspire just one person to learn a new skill, buy a tool, get out there, or build an airplane at some point, I would absolutely love to do that. I'm here to answer questions, and we certainly like to do more, as much as possible. I'd like to do another thank you to Roger Foxford, another builder, Titan Mustang builder, who's helped out a lot with advice. We've thrown ideas back and forth. There's a fraternity that happens with any aircraft that you build, where you're going to be meeting different people, and you're going to make friends, and you're going to get ideas and swap ideas back and forth. I've learned a ton. We've got much more to cover back here in work that we've done inside the aircraft. We got a whole tail wheel assembly we could show you. We're going to do it next time. So definitely provide us with some feedback. Next up on Social Flight Live, next week we have Mike Bush. He's coming next Tuesday, and we are going to talk about lean at peak operations and all sorts of engine operation stuff. So really, really cool stuff coming up with that. And then after that, we've got 2 weeks that we are going to focus on 2 different shows with some of the best aviation photographers in the world. We've got representatives from EAA and AOPA that are going to join us and talk about ground-based aviation photography. That'll be our first thing, and then air-to-air, that'll be our second half. 2 shows, so be sure to stay here at Social Flight Live and join us for those shows. We've got so many cool things coming up, and soon to be followed after that, we actually are going to have, Tyson Wheels, 4Flight will be joining us. We've got Barry and Brian Schiff are going to be joining us. Really, really cool people coming along. As always, we are here with Social Flight Live to support General Aviation and help all of you during these challenging times. If we can provide a little education, a little entertainment, that's why we're here. And please be sure to check out socialflight.com and the free SocialFlight mobile apps for Apple and Android devices. Again, it is all free and all here to keep all of us flying and support General Aviation. Thanks again to Jake and Ben. Appreciate that, especially Jake, who's off camera here, feeding questions and helping manage everything along the way. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us. Blue skies.